Now let's take a moment to talk about multiple shots for stopping power. We're not saying knockdown power. Knockdown power doesn't exist. That's in TV. In the real world, we're talking about stopping power. We want to stop the threat. So we always, with my technique, with the Real Defensive Shooting System, we always want you to understand the research, the concept, and technique. Again, to recap that, the research gives you confidence in the concept and the technique. So I always want to give you the research. First, we've got the FBI research over the last 10 years shows that unless you sever or cause severe damage to the central nervous system, meaning the spinal cord or the brain, you're not going to cause a one-stop stoppage of the threat. Multiple body shots don't do it. Okay? Now, multiple body shots, what they do is you're trying to hit in a specific area to cause as much internal damage and internal bleeding, so as the fight, the assault progresses on, the person is actually bleeding inside and bleeds out, loses consciousness due to loss of blood to the brain, loss of oxygen, and the threat stops there. But the fastest way to stop a threat is sever the central nervous system or the head. Now, not only does the FBI research show that, but a 5-year survey by Police Marksman magazine dealing with real police shootings, and again, the FBI was working with real police shootings, but Police Marksman magazine also did their research on actual live police shootings, not gelatin blocks, not simulated stuff in a laboratory, but real police shootings. They evaluated 38 caliber, 9mm, 357, and 45 ACP. Their results came out that none of the 4 calibers, and at that time they weren't using 40 caliber, but none of those 4 calibers consistently had one shot stopping power in the torso. None of them. So there is no magic bullet, there is no magic caliber, and bullets do not knock people off their feet like you see on TV. However, no matter which caliber was shot, whether it was a 38, 9mm, 357, or 45 ACP, every time one of those calibers hit an assailant in the head, the threat was stopped. So again, they independently reinforce the FBI research. They complement each other in the fact that headshots are 100% stoppage in the threat. So what I want you to do is I want to go ahead and teach you how to give multiple body shots, multiple fast, accurate body shots on an assailant, so that you cause maximum damage inside, so the attacker can start bleeding out inside, and then follow it up with a headshot. Now, ideally, if you can draw your weapon and get a headshot right away, that's going to stop the threat. And again, this is in a lethal threat situation where it's totally justified to use deadly force. And you fire and you hit somebody in the head, that's fantastic. It stops the threat right away. However, under a stressful situation, possible low light conditions, you're scared, you don't train for this every day, so it's going to be a new thing to you. It's going to be a shock to you. The head's a small target. You might miss. Why not go for a better target? The body. Much bigger, easier to hit. So that's why I recommend you go for multiple body shots first, and then you follow it up with a headshot. By multiple body shots, we're talking about, again, not down here in the digestive tract, not down here in the intestines. This is all soft tissue. You can cause damage, but you want to cause real bleeding inside, so therefore what you want to do is you want to put your shots in what I call the kill zone. The kill zone comes down through the neck, comes down here, it's about 8 inches apart, about 10 inches down. If you hit anywhere in here, you're going to hit some lungs, you're going to hit heart, you're going to hit arteries, cause a lot of damage, cause the individual to start bleeding out. As soon as he loses enough blood and he can't get enough blood to his brain to carry the oxygen, he's going to pass out. The threat's going to be stopped. So you're going to go for the kill zone. Now the kill zone also encompasses the head. Okay? So we're talking about first multiple body shots in the kill zone down here in the body, and then we're going to move up to headshots. Why? Because the headshots are 100% stoppages. When you aim in at your target, what you're going to do is the body shots, by putting good, accurate, multiple shots in the body. We've talked about the damage you're going to go ahead and create. We've also talked about the fact that the bigger target to hit, so in a fast-moving situation where you're scared, where you've got tunnel vision, it's going to be a lot easier to hit the center of the chest. So when you draw the weapon out, the minute you clear the holster, you point it at the threat, you draw the weapon, you point it straight out, and you're going for the kill zone. Bang, bang, 2 shots. Now, once you've got 2 shots in the body, Then you come up, you bring the weapon straight up on the head, and you're looking for the front sight. Once you see the front sight on the head, squeeze the trigger. So you're going to go ahead and fire multiple shots for stopping power. 2 shots in the body, up here in the kill zone to cause some good massive trauma in here, a lot of bleeding, but it's also a bigger target. Then once you've got the weapon out, you've got the gun in front of you, you got the sights in front of you, and you can see the front sight, and you feel more comfortable going for a headshot to stop the threat, finish it off with the headshot. Again, multiple shots for stopping power. Giving you the research, the concept, the technique. Again, recapping the technique. The minute you draw the weapon, point it at the threat, bring it straight out, punch it straight out into the kill zone, then bring it up to the head for your 3rd shot. 2 shots in the body, 1 shot in the head. Now, another thing we want to go ahead and talk about here for a minute is whenever you practice and you have practice targets, stay away from using, and I talk about this in my book, stay away from using bullseyes, because what's happening is you're actually programming your mind to look for the X, to look for the center of mass down here. And as we said earlier, this is a lot of soft tissue. This is not a real good place to be hit, and you want to hit up here in the heart, the arteries around the heart, the lungs, to cause a lot of damage where he's going to bleed and cause him loss of oxygen and fire, and that's going to stop the threat. So what you need to do is don't use targets with bullseyes. That's good if you're trying to do accuracy stuff. For practical situations, use targets like this, where you mentally have to practice at looking for the kill zone and putting your rounds in a kill zone. Because in a real life situation, a bad guy's not going to have a target on him. You're going to have to program yourself, condition yourself how to aim for the kill zone without it being marked. Another thing we want to go into here is, again, multiple shots for stopping power. We've talked about 2 in the chest, 2 in the kill zone body, and 1 in the head. We want to give you another technique just in case. Let's say, again, it's under low light situations. You fired 2 shots here in the body. The person's moving back and forth. You're worried that if you go for the head, you're going to miss. You don't want to do that because you're concerned about what's behind the person. Also, you'd rather have a third body, a good solid body shot than a well-meaning miss to the head. So what you figure is that I'm going to go ahead and give you a technique where you're going to fire 2 into the kill zone here, and then I want you to focus down here for the pelvis. What you're trying to do here is, this is all soft tissue and you got a big pelvis bone, big target. Okay, remember, you're a little bit worried about firing at the head because it's a smaller target, it's on the move. Okay, if you just go down, this is a much bigger target than the head, plus it's less mobile than the head is. So what happens is, you've got a bigger target, and your objective is to fire 2 rounds into the pelvis. You're going to go through this soft tissue right here. The bullet's going to slam right into the pelvis. You want it to hit either the hip or the pelvis. You want to aim center of the pelvis, but if you fire a little right or the left and you mash the hip, what you're trying to do is break the pelvis or smash the hip bone, causing the individual to collapse. Just like a chair, if you knock out one of the legs, it's going to collapse. It's a bigger target, it's easier to hit, and the plus is it stops the person's forward momentum. If they're trying to rush you and you hit it accurate, 2 shots here and it's in the kill zone body, then you come down here to the pelvis, now you've caused him to collapse, he's still bleeding internally inside, the threat should be eliminated as soon as he bleeds out inside. So that's the plus, you've stopped his forward attack on you, his forward movement. The negative of that is, if he's got a firearm in his hand, or in his hands, just because you've stopped his forward movement doesn't mean he's still not just as lethal. He can still pull the trigger, so he's still a threat on you. We've got a stage of fire here where I teach how to shoot from the ground. All you've done is put him on the ground. So if he's got a weapon, he can fire from the ground, just like I taught you, or I will be teaching you how to shoot from the ground in that stage of fire in the real defensive shooting system. So you've got the plus. We've talked about 2 to the body, 1 to the head. The plus on that, it's fast, accurate target, fast, accurate place to get multiple body shots. If you're scared and you're nervous, now once you've got the weapon already out and you can see the front sight, focus on the front sight, come up to the head, because that head shot is 100% stoppage. So we've taught you that technique. Also the next technique, which is you're worried about the missing the head, it's dark, low light conditions, person moving, you want to come down, continue firing multiple shots on the assailant for stopping power, so you lower down to the pelvis, you want to break the pelvis bone, cause him to collapse, him or her to collapse, that stops their forward movement. We've given you 2 different techniques for multiple shots for stopping power. One of the things I'll go into now real quick is, if you're going to go ahead and you've got 2 assailants or 3 assailants, what you want to think about is, If I draw the weapon on one of the assailants, I fire 2 shots in the chest, 1 in the head. If both assailants have weapons on me, by the time I fire 2 in the chest, 1 in the head here, the assailant over there has already fired on me. So if you've got multiple assailants, they both have weapons, in a real-life practical situation, I would not worry about 2 in the chest, 1 in the head. I would worry about getting 1 solid kill zone body shot and move straight over here and get another kill zone body shot. Then go to the head on that subject and the head on this subject. It's much faster to go bang, bang, and get 2 solid body shots in the kill zone. Then they're reacting. They've already been shot. It's going to be harder for them to go ahead, even if they have weapons in their hand. It's going to be, number one, you're putting rounds on them, accurate rounds, faster than they can throw them on you. Now, even if they've got a weapon in their hand, they're shot. They're reacting from that. They've still got to go ahead and concentrate, get the weapon out, and fire accurately at you. So you're changing to where now they're in the defensive and you're on the offensive for both assailants. So if you've got 1 assailant, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, or 2 to the chest, 2 to the pelvis, if you've got multiple assailants, I'd go ahead, in a practical situation, 1 solid body shot into the kill zone, move straight over to the other assailant, kill zone body shot, and then I'd finish them off with a headshot. Now let's take a moment to talk about one-handed shooting. Now, I can't find any statistics that reinforce how many police officers have used one hand to go ahead and shoot their weapon. However, could it be a practical reality? What if your wife's coming, you and your wife are on a parking lot, all of a sudden an assault occurs, you push your wife around behind you to go ahead and address the threat. Now you've got one hand free to go ahead and grab your weapon. It's important that you understand that you can fire effectively with one hand, either your right or left hand, what's referred to as your shooting hand or your support hand. Because if you only train firing with 2 hands, if a situation comes about, you're going to be confused about firing just one hand. You're not going to be as confident. You're going to have a little bit of confusion. Confusion in a stressful situation can cause a critical error. So what I'm going to go ahead and explain a little bit to you now is how to shoot right-handed, or shooting hand. For me, it's my shooting hand. My left hand is my support hand, so I'm going to go over a little bit of technique, how to use that. We've already talked about the stance and the grip. The grip one-handed is exactly what we've talked about before. Nothing changes. The beauty of my stance is nothing changes whether you're using 2 hands to address the threat in the extended ready position or using 1 hand. Everything is the same. Feet shoulder width apart. Bend forward a little bit at the waist, shoulder pushed out, elbow locked out, wrist locked out. Again, the more bend you have in any of your joints, when the recoil occurs from the weapon, your wrist is going to bend, your elbow is going to bend, your shoulder is going to bend, it's going to bring you off target. So you want to brace, keep everything locked out so that the recoil, again, transfers all the way down your elbow, your shoulder, into your upper body, and you're braced against it. You can fire effectively using the exact same stance. Again, the same stance for one-handed shooting as we do for two-handed. That way you maximize speed by minimizing movement. Plus you make it simpler, so you make it a lot easier to understand, a lot less confusing. As we've talked about before, the less confusing you can make it in a critical situation, the better chance you're going to have of accomplishing your task and completing the technique simply and smoothly and effectively. Again, once you draw the weapon, the grip is identical. I always take my left hand, my non-shooting hand, I put it on my chest. The reason I do that is twofold. One, it's closer. If something happens and I have to extend the weapon, Now something happens where I have to change hands for whatever reason. I'm now ready to go ahead, change hands. Again, I'm using the same stance. Nothing changes. It's just the fact that my hand is now closer to the weapon, so I maximize speed again by minimizing movement. If my hand's back here, I've got to go ahead. It's just greater distance, a split second that I may not have to come back up to the weapon. Another thing while we're talking about the weapon, never throw the gun back and forth. You always want to keep your hand on it. So if something would happen and I'm in one-handed shooting and I need to transfer it over, just tilt the weapon forward so that the webbing, the beaver tail back in the rear of the weapon becomes visible to you. Stick your other hand directly underneath that and grab it with the left hand. So I've never released the control or released my grip on this weapon, no matter what hand I'm using. Same thing if you're going to transfer it back to the right hand. Okay, tilt the weapon forward, take the web between your thumb and your index finger, place it underneath the trigger guard, underneath the beaver tail here, get a good grip, you're ready to go. Okay, I'm going to give you another angle where we're doing left-handed. When we go ahead, again, this is how it looks. Everything stays the same. One hand shooting with my support hand, feet shoulder width apart, leaning forward into the threat, grab the weapon, draw it. The minute I clear leather, I point directly at the threat, bring the weapon over. I'm going to put it into this hand. Remember how we do it. Tilt it forward, push my hand up under the beaver tail, the webbing of my hand, extend it straight out. Wrist locked, elbow locked, shoulder forward. Same stance, same everything, hand on the chest. So that when I fire the weapon, if I need to go ahead and transfer it over, as you notice, nothing moves. My stance is all the same. We maximize speed by minimizing movement. We also maximize speed and efficiency by minimizing the complicatedness of the entire situation. We make it a lot simpler. Okay? Again, draw the weapon. The minute you clear leather, the minute you get out of the holster, point it at the threat. So if something happens and the threat, the assailant or the assailants rush me a lot faster than I had anticipated, I could start shooting right here, use my close quarter battle technique, use my close quarter battle technique this way, or I could even go ahead and back up. Each one of my techniques blend into the other and complement each other, so it's like in a boxing situation where one combination flows into the next, so it's fluid. Again, we draw the weapon. The minute you clear the holster, bring it straight across, transfer it over, straight out at the threat. Wrist locked, elbow locked, shoulder locked, leaning forward into the threat. One-handed shooting, right hand, left hand, it's a practical, tactical situation that may occur. You need to go ahead and work with it. We've given you a technique. Now let's move on.